rocking.
Is this where the damn drumming and the music kicks in?
Yeah.
In the world is going on, everybody? Hello and welcome back to On the Pipe Podcast. I'm your host, as always, Tyler Shepherdson, and today is Wednesday, October the 11th, 2023, years after zero. And now that I say that out loud, I think it's Brett Favre's birthday. One of these days around here is Brett Favre's birthday. Don't know why I thought about that, but what I did think about is how excited I am to bring you this show. We all saw the Racer TV recap of this past weekend. We all saw what happened with this championship battle at the penultimate round of the GNCC, and in the face of all of it, Stu still stuck in and came to chat with us about what happened. So, a wonderful conversation. Hope you guys enjoy it. I don't want to take up too much of your time before we get into it, but I do have to let you know that Beta motorcycles are the best on the planet, point blank, period. Go to betausa.com. Find some information about those Beta motorcycles. They're available models, premium quality, rideability. You know the deal. Also, Zach Tussle at Raymond James Financial is waiting to make your money make you money. That is right. It's as simple as that. You don't have to be a millionaire. You don't even have to make a lot of money. You just need to want to invest in your future. Zach Tussle can help you do that. Hit him up, Financial Advisors, DenverNC.com. Let him know that you are a listener of OTP, and you can get a free consultation of exactly what it is that he does and how he can do it and how he would be the best steward of your money. He is always my first recommendation for any financial planning or financial advising. Zach Tussle with Raymond James Financial. So, yesterday, we did go into some detail about the XC1 points versus the overall points. It was pointed out to me by Russell Smith that the GNCC, I think it was 2 years ago. So we were close to this situation happening before with Ben and Stu when they battled down to the wire. We also had an opportunity at that last round where it could have been a different XC1 champion and a different overall champion. So I think that rule got amended going into last year, if I do recall. But now there is a part in the GNCC points that does say that the XC1 points will run concurrent with the overall points. So I don't think that there is technically a way where there is a different XC1 champion than an overall champion. So I think they're going to be one and the same. So I think that 23 points is the gap between Stu Baylor and Craig DeLong as they head into this final round. But if you are listening to this, there's a YouTube video of the race. Seems like people enjoy it. It's raw racing in chronological order, exactly how it happened. You can see how tight the battles are. Head to YouTube, search for On the Pipe Podcast, and you can find it there. And yeah, we put out a show yesterday, kind of recapped all the racing that went on. But now we're going to talk to none other than Stu Baylor Jr. So without further delay, we're now going to move right into it. So joining us on tonight's episode, coming off the weekend, a little bit of the talk of the town. We're going to welcome in now Stu Baylor. Stu, what's going on, man?
Just got done building a supercross track back at the Shoals and doing normal around the house life stuff. I hadn't been around the house for more than 24 hours for the last 50 days, so just trying to catch up on a lot of missed time.
Dang. What? So supercross track, you got some people training down there in the off season. What's the deal? You switching over? You got some stiffer suspension? You hitting triples now? What's going on?
Yeah, something like that. I after this weekend, I just decided, you know what, I'm hanging up the boots in GNCC and we're going supercross racing.
Well, you got a few months.
Why'd you laugh? No, we've got we're kind of gearing up for the November crowd that wants to come around before mini O's, and you've got some guys that are training for actual Supercross, some guys that are training for what I call mini O Supercross. So we have a little bit of both, and for the actual full scale Supercross, we just have some guys, some amateur guys that are coming down that are trying to get comfortable and more confident on the Supercross side of things, and it's pretty obvious. Like when you look at rides in the last decade, it really changed from GNC. You used to see a GNCC guy could get a GNCC contract, and years ago, a Supercross guy could get a Supercross contract, or a motocross guy could get a motocross. But these kids have to be prepared on both sides. So we've got quite a few kids trying to get down and get acquainted with that Supercross, and Feld's been doing a good job alongside MX Sports of building the what used to just be the futures at one event. Now they have multiple things with the playoffs, and one of the riders was actually my little cousin Caleb Wood, who's should win the GNCC Youth overall, and in his case, he had never ridden a Supercross until he went to Chicago, and we've had a Supercross sitting there for 5 years. So,
what's the deal?
Now that's exactly. Yeah, it's a question that I wanted to ask, but I just felt like probably shouldn't. He didn't have a very good showing, and sometimes people get a little bit emotional when you don't have a really good showing.
No, I don't believe that for a second.
People in this family with this bloodline, potentially.
Yeah. And, man, it is cool to see how much the Shoals is growing, and to see you preparing for the future. Just like you said, these kids riding Supercross, having to be prepared for everything. Especially now you got SMX, like no telling how big that's going to get, where it's half Supercross and half motocross in the same damn race. So it is cool to see you guys preparing for the future, and also giving people a place to ride, especially during the off season. And I know a lot of people come down from the north and stay there over the entire off season. So yeah, it's cool to see all that and see how much the Shoals is growing.
Yeah. It's. I think this year is going to be. I hope it's going to be one for the record books as far as we go. Like, we've got 41 RV sites, and normally it's last minute calls like, hey, we're headed down, you got a spot, and last year we filled up for a brief time, but this year we're almost full, and we're 3 months from the busy season. So it's I think it's going to be a cool year just to see the melting pot, and we kind of get every year you get the same guys back, but they add another buddy that they talked into coming down because they like the place. And like, man, there's nothing more rewarding. There's only one thing more rewarding, and it's I'll get to that in a second. There's just about nothing more rewarding than hearing compliments that somebody is giving about you or what you're doing. And when you see your buddy from Connecticut come down with 2 other people, and he walks out to the track, and you hop out of the skid steer, and he's like, man, see, I told you this place is effing badass. Like, that's you hop out of skid steer, you're automatically like, all right, I got to get back in the skid steer. Like, I got to make it more badass. Like, the only thing more rewarding than that is getting to do what I do and share it with my kid. Just on the sappy side, because I was about to say there was nothing more rewarding, but that one does hit a little more home. But yeah, outside of that, like, there's that reward of at the Shoals when people show up and they're like, man, this place is awesome. Like, you have 4 different tracks of 4 different dirt, and you get to ride something different every day. And we've got the GNCC stuff, we've got tight national enduro trees. Like, I set this up as my personal playground with my uncle's pocketbook, and now it's nothing has changed. It's my personal playground, and other people get to enjoy it. So, yeah, it's a killer place, and it's something that we're trying to build for the future, and something that my family and myself have dumped a lot of money into for the last few years. And it's we're definitely starting to see the reward pay off. And taking kids that can win at GNCC and also win at Loretta's is pretty damn badass. So I'm stoked on what we're doing and how we're getting there. And it's been a long process, but the Shoals is definitely a place I call home for the time that I get to spend here. And it's we've been building a lot of fast riders, and they get to ride what I get to ride every day. So it's been going really good.
Yeah, and they also get to see how you train and how you go about it and your mindset on stuff every day too. But I'm also sure that that Uncle Russ is probably stoked that you're almost sold out for the winter too. That way, it's not solely coming out of his pocketbook anymore. We got some people contributing.
Yeah, definitely. Like, we discuss it all the time. Like, a lot of people, we've had trainers, we've had people in the parking lot that have head counted, and they start doing the math, and they're, I had this conversation with Steven Squire a couple weeks ago, and it's like, man, people pull into your parking lot and they start head counting and seeing what they think you bring in, but they never factor what you have going out. And like, man, just to keep the lights on in that place, it's $300,000. Like, we just to make just simply, if we were to use a tractor, plow the track, pay our insurance, pay our water and power bill, and our taxes, because it's all commercial taxes. Like, I mean, you're 300 grand, and we don't have payments on any of the equipment, and factoring that in, like, it's man, it's ridiculously expensive. So when somebody comes up and they're like, man, you made $40,000 this month, and you turn around and you're like, yeah, I spent 46. Like,
Yeah.
it's like, all right, yeah, it sounded great until you look at the books. So
I'm glad you meant.
yeah.
I glad you meant figuratively keeping the lights on. 'Cause I was about to say, if it costs that much, y'all need to damn get some LED light bulbs. Plus,
No, it's just, yeah, like to keep it running the way that we want it running, like to prep track every day, to pay our track guy, to pay our trainer, like, yeah, I mean, you're well over 300 grand just to keep it rolling. And when people come to the parking lot and they see 20 campers, they're like, oh yeah, it looks like money's good. Yeah, step over here, because
yeah.
every time you see it like that, it's a little bit different. We've continuously poured a couple $100,000 a year into this thing for the last 7 years, and it's finally getting to the point where we're hoping that we don't have to spend any more money, or the big lump sums back into it anymore. Like, from now, it's like, all right, well, if we've got the majority of it done, maybe next year we'll go and spend $50,000 and add sand to some of our tracks, like doing something different. But yeah, it's something that, as long as he and I both have good jobs and making money elsewhere, like, we're putting every penny of that place and every penny out of our pockets as well back into it, so that we can grow something for the future when I retire. And something for his kids as well, Caleb Wood and Trent Wood. And yeah, it was a dream of mine 10 years ago, and luckily it's now a reality. I just bought property just a mile away, and we're looking to build a house out there, so we're listing our house for sale, so that we can be close enough to the track for whenever we get those late night phone calls asking when something's wrong. So
Yeah.
but yeah, it's definitely grown and definitely come a long way.
See, and plus the other added expense that nobody ever thinks of is, I don't think people really understand quite how much stuff Drew Calloway breaks.
Well, technically, Drew is no longer with us. He moved on. We couldn't afford to pay him what he's worth.
Oh
Great
no.
worker, good kid. But my God, I thought I was bad. I really thought I was bad. Absolutely. And some people, they talk about bad luck following some people. I swore I was one of those people until I met Drew. Like, the only person with worse luck than Drew Calloway is Corey Buttrick. And
Mm.
I don't know how it can get much worse than that.
I think last time I was there is when he drove over a water line or something and busted it. So
Yeah, I think
Shout
that
out
happened
Drew.
like 3 days in a row.
Yeah, I was just picking on him a little bit, but no, dude, it's cool, and especially we were talking about a little bit ago, but like to be able to do things like have that big New Year's Eve bash, which I assume is going to be going on again, and I mean all that stuff too. It gives everyone an opportunity to come in and check out the facility and what's going on.
Yeah, and definitely the New Year's bash this year. I haven't posted anything about it. I haven't really discussed it because we've got some plans. Like last year, our New Year's situation was a little different. Like the New Year's party was also tied into the verb race, but this year is going to be, it's going to be two separate weekends is what I'm trying to figure out right now. Like I still want to do the verb race, but I want to find a way to do the New Year's ride weekend completely separate, and I want to do something really fun. Like I don't want to have any racing unless it's pit bike racing. Like it's just gonna be a fun weekend for anybody with a dirt bike. So the plan for right now is it will be the release of next year's team and the program that I'll be running. It'll be the unofficial best party of the year for off-road. It'll be the unofficial best party of the year for motocross as well. The plan right now is have a band, have some beer, have fun. 3 nights, 3 days. I say 3 nights, obviously, because like I'm looking forward to cold beer. But 3 days in a row, having two tracks and a GNCC / GP style loop going every day. So we'll prep. You know, we have 4 motocross tracks. We'll prep 2 of the 4. So that everybody will get to bounce around. If you're there for the 3-day weekend, get to bounce around and ride all of our different motocross tracks. And Supercross track will be closed unless you are a pro card holder with a Supercross bike. But yeah, it's I think this year I'm going to try to go back and have some more fun with it and you know, make it less racy. The race will start after January 1. January 1's meant for drinking beer and riding dirt bikes.
Perfect. Glad to see it.
Yep. So you'll be there, right?
Oh yeah, 100%. Wouldn't miss it for the world.
Perfect.
Already penciled it in for my New Year's Eve.
Bring in somebody that you could fangirl over. Like if it makes sure that it gets you there, I'll bring in B-Lat.
Ooh, I'm in.
I think you could outcast him into a moose racing stand.
Dude, trust me. I've been practicing. You just let me know the distance ahead of time, though. I can get everything dialed in. We're going to take him out.
Done deal. I'm putting money on you. I mean, I see you've been practicing a lot. Now, if it comes to actual fishing, I'm sticking with B-Lat. Like there's a reason that he's getting paid to go fishing.
And he needs to quit watching so many YouTube videos and training. Otherwise, I got worried about him beating me on a dirt bike too.
He's working at it. The guy is throttle happy and has balls like a walrus. Like, isn't that the one that's supposed to have huge balls? Like, the guy is headstrong on a dirt bike. To be a professional fisherman, like you would almost think, like, all right, if he's a fisherman, there's a reason he's a fisherman. He's probably not coordinated. And he may not be, but he's definitely fearless. Like he is 100% fearless.
And the other thing about becoming a pro bass fisherman is you got to go through a lot of sucking and still find the joy and keep going out there and doing it, which you got to also do your days on a dirt bike.
Yeah, and then he was telling me what an entry fee costs to go bass fishing.
Yeah.
I think I'll stick with dirt bikes.
Oh, dude. It's insane. I think for those boys, they're paying like $1,500, $2,000.
5.
Oof.
$5,000, and alike to some of the sports that we're interested in, the payout has gone backwards.
Yeah, but I mean, it still pays $500,000 when the Bassmaster Classic.
Yeah, for that event, but I guess apparently for the other ones, they're still complaining about making 50,000 a win over there, but yeah.
Wouldn't that suck? Only making
Oh, that would be
50 grand to
terrible.
win an event?
That would be terrible.
Dude, so I don't know if you know, and didn't mean to get this far off topic already into the show, but do you know Brian Thrift or Matt Airy?
If they're fishermen, I don't watch it. I just know B-Lat because he trains at the track.
Yeah.
And I know, what's the other one? Casey Ashley, because he lives across the street from the track. So he won the 2017 Bassmaster Classic or something. Yeah.
Dang. So, Brian Thrift and Matt Airy, they're both from Shelby, like right down the road from me. There was one event this past year where Brian Thrift, at one of the tournaments, it was $120,000 to win, and it was $120,000 for the biggest fish. So Brian Thrift all weekend only had one fish that counted, and it happened to be the biggest fish of the weekend. So he caught one fish and made $120,000 for one fish. Didn't even place in the event, but 120 grand for one fish.
That would be like if they put 100 grand on the whole shot.
Yeah.
You know who you could guarantee would not get it?
Who?
I'd put 150 that I wouldn't get it.
Need to see those odds somewhere.
Yeah, my statistics on starts are not very good. Not very good.
What about the Yamaha days? It's hard for me to remember back to last year. I've slept since then.
I got one whole shot on the Yamaha ever.
Dang.
I've got 3. Let's see. This is bad. I've got 3 whole shots since I started racing an XC1.
What?
Not including snowshoe. I've gotten 3 at snowshoe. But that's live engine, downhill, and a slippery start. I've got traction and gravity going for me.
I was about to say, you got the momentum rolling into that turn.
But outside of snowshoe, if we throw snowshoe in, I've gotten 6 whole shots in XC1. Jeez. Outside of that, I've got 3 whole shots. I got Still Creek 2014. I got 2018 or 19 Indiana, the X Factor, and I got
the muddy one. No, that was 17.
No. Yeah, the dry one. So 18.
Yeah.
I got the 18 hole shot there, the 14 hole shot at Steel Creek. That was on a 2-stroke. And then I got the 2022 hole shot at 2021 hole shot at the Buckwheat.
Dang.
Yep. 3 hole shots.
That's insane.
in my exactly 10 years of XC1. So call it, how many races are there? I don't even want to go through these numbers. My percentages are really, really bad.
And then if you did put some money on you not getting the whole shot, that would be the time that the thing fires right up.
Yep. Dude, it fired up great this weekend, and then I had a rider on the inside kind of blow me wide. But yeah, it fired up this weekend. I was just in the wrong spot for it. I was just preparing for my normal start.
Yeah. So before we get into the nitty-gritty of this weekend, which is obviously the elephant in the room that we got to get to, let me ask you this. From a normal human's perspective, I'm not going to say me, for example, because I'm not going to put myself up for failure like this, but a normal rider, a non-A rider, if you put them on a Stark or an Alta, one of the electric bikes, you put them on the XC1 row, what are the realistic chances of a normal human being on an electric bike pulling an XC1 whole shot?
It depends on their confidence, because let me tell you what, the XC1 guys can corner really fast, but they will be the first one to that turn. They will 100%. Any normal human person that is a decent rider, I would even say up to C class level, will beat every single one of us to that first corner on one of those motorcycles. How they make the flat slick turn under acceleration, solely up to them.
And how many people they take out when they overshoot that first turn.
Yes. And you know, it's funny, like, man, I pulled a lot of XC2 hole shots. Sorry, but the kid has decided that he is coming in to
Hey, Levi.
interfere. He's going to run interference, so I hope the listeners are okay with it.
We talk for an hour, and no sign from Levi. We start recording. No. Here he is.
So yeah, he pops up just like that. He's like, "Hey guys, I know you're here for me. Dad's talking right now, but whenever you're ready, let me know."
He's got a sense for the stardom. He heard the record button hit.
He had his big race this weekend on the Stasic. Did not go so well. Yeah, we'll get into that later. But yeah, no, any rider with decent throttle control and can sit on the gas tank or the electric tank would definitely beat us through the first turn. But what's funny is, like, in XC2, I would say that when I was in that class, like 30+% of the whole shots I had. So the difference in XC2 and XC1, and I understand, like, it was kickstarts back. A lot of things were different, but like being able to start and go to the front is so much different when you were in the class with all of the guys who won XC2 or could have or would have won XC2 at the time. Like, you're in the class with guys who have the same confidence level that you had in XC2, and you'll hold it on that extra second. And that's where I always got it. Like, now everybody's going to hold it on that extra second. So
yeah,
definitely the start changes. Like, I've found that some of my best starts have been let everybody go through the first turn and cut underneath them. Like, go ahead and let them have that bike length on you and squeeze that hay bale and try to get underneath them as they hold it on a little bit longer. Because like I said, I'm usually not the first one there. So
yeah.
But this weekend, I'm telling you, my bike, I got a video of the bike fired up and took off like a rocket. I was way too far out there to control it. And when I went to cut under, I had a guy blow up wide and just kind of push me to the outside. And, you know, I think that sweeping method could have put me in the top 3 for next turn, but it is what it is. I think regardless, the outcome still would have been the same for this week.
Who was the rider? You got to call him out. We want to know.
I don't know. It was on a red bike, and the problem is we had, let's see, Lane, Evan, and I haven't watched back I haven't watched the live feed. So it was either Lane,
you didn't
Evan,
miss much.
or Ryder.
What?
Yeah, I don't think the top 3 ever changed, did they? Or I guess in the gas stop, that's about it. But yeah, it was definitely a red bike, so it had to be Evan, Ryder, or Lane. I'm gonna go ahead and pick on Ryder and say it was him. He's the new guy.
Yep, that's what I heard. It was definitely Ryder. We're gonna blame it on him.
That's what I'm figuring. Yeah.
Which he came out of nowhere and had a hell of a ride himself this weekend. But kind of like we talked about or talked briefly about before the rider introductions, is like, man, ever since our XC2 episode, we've had 3 people self-promote from XC2 to XC1. So I think we're out here making a difference with these shows, man.
I mean, I would love to think so. Like, I would also love to throw a stab back. But we'll discuss that later.
All right. So man, we're 25 minutes in, and we got to get to it. We got to talk about it, man. This weekend, I'm sure I can't imagine how it must feel on your end. Talked about it a little bit on the show last night that I did, to kind of talk about the stuff that went into this year, from leaving a factory team with a guaranteed salary to taking a risk on joining your own team, to deal with the highs and the lows. You've been through 3 different mechanics this year. You've been through all the sponsors. You set it up. You hired the riders. You got riders paid. You got yourself paid. You hired crew members. You've been through all of this. and you came into this round leading the XC1 points. And we think back to 2 years ago when you came all the way down to the wire once again for the championship, heading into the final round. From your perspective, walk us through this weekend as far as what went on and kind of your perspective and your takeaway from it, like in your own words. And I know that is a very broad question, and I know that is jumping right into it. But I mean, however you go about it and process it in your own way, what was Sunday like?
Sunday was not as stressful. It was not as stressful as I thought it was going to be. Like last time I was in this situation, it was stressful. I was pissed off. I was pissed off about a call that happened at this same event that cost me points going into the final round. And you know, I'd lived it. Basically, I had lived it before. Like I've been there. Like I've done that. Like, man, you know, I heard some people saying, "Oh, well, Craig said it doesn't really bother him. He's been in this position before." Bullshit. Like, I mean, I'm not going to be an asshole to Craig, but like, he knows that was a bullshit answer. No different than I do. XC2 and XC1 are far different. Like, the maturity level, what you've put into it at that point, and the hype built around it are completely different. Like, so I'm calling bullshit. Like, if you say, "Oh, I've been in this position because I've been in a championship battle before," bullshit. Like, I mean, plain and simple. Like, XC1 championship is what you're after from the time you come into that parking lot. Whether you see it, believe it, or it doesn't matter. Like, I mean, from the time I was 8 years old, like, I knew who the XC1 champion was in that parking lot. And whether I said at 8 years old that I wanted to be that guy, you wanted to be that guy. So there's so much more. Like, nobody goes to a GNCC and says, "Man, I'd love to be the XC2 champion." No. Like, I'm sorry. Like, yes, it's a goal and a byproduct of your success along the way, but you go if you genuinely want or think that you have any desire of being the best person in that parking lot, you have no interest to be the XC2 champion. If you get it, that's a byproduct of your success. Plain and simple, you line up and you want to be the fucking man. No questions asked. And man, that stress the first time you live it is it's nothing like XC2. So again, I'm calling bullshit on that. But beyond that, I've lived it, and it wasn't near what I thought it was last time. Like, I've been through it, and a lot of things have happened since last time. I've had a kid, like some major life changes, and when you go through those changes, like, you realize, like, racing's still big. It's a major part of my life and will be a major part of my kid's life, but it's not as big as it was back then. So for Craig, like, I know for a fact, whether he says it or not, he was shitting bullets, because I was. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you. Like, when I was in that position before I had a kid, and that was the only thing in life worth living for. It was. So, you know, in my mind, I thought it was going to come back to that, but I've had some major life changes since then, and it wasn't as big as I made it out to be last time. But I also, in the back of my mind, this time, I knew there was no way I was going to get beat. Like, whether I would have or not, that's totally up in there. In my mind, I knew for a fact there was no way I was going to get beat. When I lined up on Sunday, I said in my pre-race interview, start's gonna be crucial. I suck at starts. I'll probably put on my mid-race charge, which I did. You know, I rode my race, and once everything kind of fell into place, found some lines, found where I wanted to be, found my speed. I saw that the guys in front of us were starting to pull away. I put on the charge. I cut I don't know, 20 seconds into him in a lap, got by Ashburn, and was able to go to the front and get within sight of those guys. And right before we popped out of the woods, that's when all hell broke loose. So, it was that part was more frustrating than like anything you could imagine, because as I stated, when you're 8 years old and you're sitting in that parking lot, there is one goal. Well, guess what? In my mind, like I just stated prior, I won that championship already. I was the best rider. You're not gonna tell me otherwise. And Craig could have lined up with the same mentality, and I hope he did. I'm not trying to be arrogant when I say this. Like, that's the way you have to line up. You are the best rider. And in my mind, I was the best rider. Most fit to win. I've obviously been on a hot streak for the last since I've basically been living on the road on an air mattress and chasing perfection. I mean, I've put it all on the line for this year. Like, this was the year. I mean, like you said, I left everything that was comfortable to do this. And when I realized what had happened and I realized the race course for that day, I knew there was no making that time up. It was one of those days where you could throw a blanket over XC1. I knew XC2 was the same way. I'm 2 minutes from the pits. Best case scenario, I make it back and lose 5-6 minutes, which I think I ended up losing 6.5 minutes total. And I'm outside the top 20. And yeah, I mean, there's like, when I got back to my pits, I really vaguely remember anything from the time I saw my shock bolt missing to the time I got back on the track. And I had a good crash that kind of woke me up. I had 3 or 4 really big crashes, like just trying to do too much too fast. And it ended up costing me a few more points. I mean, at the end of the race, I knocked myself out for a brief time and, messed my groove up. I was pretty pissed, like just riding straight out of out of hatred towards what I've dedicated my life to. And since then, obviously everything's changed. But again, like you said, I mean, this is the year that I gave everything towards one thing. And man, if you would have asked me 12 months ago when I was leaving what I was leaving and trying to start my own program, do you think you'll win on year one? I would have said, I hope so. I would have never said absolutely. And now, like, looking back, like, man, I could have won on year one, especially like now, we talked about it last episode, like, it's easy. I can live in hindsight. Man, I wish I would have focused on me instead of everybody else for a lot of this year, because everybody else kind of let me down. Like, I was the guy that I had to focus on, and that was the reason I went on and did this myself anyway. And that's what's been paying off in the last few weeks, is focusing on me. And yeah, it was man, it was frustrating. Like I said, I just spent 45 of the last 50 days on the road chasing perfection, living on an air mattress, and 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 this is the way that it ended. So yeah,
Man,
yeah.
a lot to unload there. And like I said, I know that was a very open-ended and big question, and that was a big response to it. So there's certainly things to go back and break down and kind of talk about here. But that is one thing that you mentioned in that post, is that you've been away from home, you've been away from family at times, you've been chasing perfection, as you said. From chasing perfection, what do you mean by that? Is that a bike setup? Is that a mental place? Is that getting back to, I mean, winning 3 straight national enduros? Like, what is your definition of chasing perfection over the past couple months?
Perfection and what we do is non-existent. It's a phrase you can use loosely, like I did. Perfection is something you can chase your whole life and you'll never be, but you can be a hell of a lot better tomorrow if you work towards it than you are today if you don't. And that was kind of where I was. Like, my mechanic and I drove to New Hampshire multiple times and went to Factory Connection and said, basically, fix it. Like, wait, what's it doing? I don't know. It's got to be better. Here's my list of complaints. Here's my list of things that I like. What can you do with it? Um, we traveled to Indiana, basically planning for Ironman 2.5 weeks in advance. We went and rode a couple miles from where the race was in West Virginia, where we raced this weekend. We rode about 3 miles from there 3 or 4 weeks ago, planning for this race. And we had our tires set up. We had our suspension set up. We had everything that we could possibly check off that list done weeks in advance. And it was something that I had never done or tried before, but it was working. It was like, man, we're trying something completely new and different, and it's working. And it's similar to like what my mechanic when I was on Yamaha, when I was very, very dominant, like Corey McDonald and I were doing. And we would go to a race on Wednesday or Thursday. We would find a place close to ride, a couple miles away, and set up the bike for those conditions. And we would win 80% of the time. And we were kind of back doing something very similar to that. We were just doing it a couple weeks out and then still riding a couple days before the event, a couple miles away. And that's perfection. Like it is chasing perfection, I guess I would say. It's not perfection, it's chasing perfection. And that's what we were doing. I mean, I was leaving the wife and kid, living in an enclosed trailer because my RV's still in the shop in Nashville. Coming back from Loretta's, it didn't decide to make it. So, yeah, that's a story in its own. But yeah, I mean, it's been a long journey, like trying to run a team, manage a team, and also set up things for next year and moving forward, and the whole 9 yards, and still focus on yourself. And that was like, I just finally, like, I was turning my phone off at certain points during the day or turning on the airplane mode. Like, I'm focusing on me and me alone. That is what's going to pay the bills. Like, it's going to pay the bills for myself. It's going to pay the bills for the team. It's the only thing that is going to move this whole operation forward. And that's what we did for, I mean, basically after Loretta's it started. So August, we've been nonstop on the road. I've spent, when I was home, it was for a 24-hour turnaround. Like, go to the shoals, have a quick chat, have a meeting, and turn back around and haul ass again. So, yeah, it was like I say, it was frustrating. Like I felt like I'd put everything I could into this, and when I was riding back to the pits, like just kind of feeling it stripped away. Like the money's one thing, having 6 figures pulled out of your pocket and basically might as well throw it on the ground and light it on fire. Like, yeah, that sucks. But like, man, that money, I would have pissed it away on a new dozer or something anyway. So 5 years from now, it wouldn't matter. What would matter is that I reached my goal, and yeah, that was devastating.
Man. And so I guess let's start back with what actually happened. And I got a follow-up question for that, but so people know what happened.
The shock bolt broke. Best I could tell, the shock bolt just broke. Don't
The
know.
upper one, right?
The upper shock bolt, yeah.
So when, like, was it a gradual, like, hey, my rear end's feeling super weird, and then it broke and let loose, or did it all happen at once? Like, went from perfectly fine to all of a sudden, what the hell's going on?
It happened pretty quick. Like, I could see there was a right-hander at the bottom of the hill before we popped out into this little grassy area where I looked at my shock, and I could see the rear. I thought Ricky must be leading. Ricky must have been just in front of me, and I couldn't see him around the corner, but I could see Craig and Ryder, and I knew I hadn't passed Ricky yet, so I just figured he was in front, but apparently he was right behind. Saw Craig and Ryder, so I was basically within sight, within 3 to 5 seconds of those guys. Come out of this right-hander, like ease left, and there's a tree root we jump over, and when I jumped that, like my back end just felt like it hung down. I went up a sweeping right, into a left, popped out on that grassy field. I'm like, what in the hell is going on? Like something's not right. And it just, like I said, it happened. It happened fairly quick, and I knew where I was. I knew where I was in the property, and I knew I could get back fairly quickly. And once I realized what happened, it was one of those things like, man, if I continue to go, like this shock is going to bury itself into my airbox or blow out the subframe. Like I'm not finishing at all. Best chance is try to go back and get it fixed. And, instinct takes over. And that was kind of what happened.
So you pulled over and looked at it and realized what it was, or you just started beelining for the pits?
No, I pulled over first and looked at and tried to figure out exactly what it was. And luckily I had eyes on it pretty quick and was able to identify what needed to be done. And, just from there, like get back to the pits as quickly as possible.
Dang. So, I mean, what's going through your mind? Because you take off, and it kind of was like there's definitely worse spots that it could have happened at. Like you kind of had a line back to the pits from there. But I mean, what's going through your brain at that point? Like, did anyone? I saw you talking to somebody on the live feed, but like, did anybody on your team know what happened? Like, was anybody expecting you when you got there, or was it just get back to the pits and try to figure out what's going on?
They expected me because it was luckily the drone was flying over top of me, but they didn't know what it was. Like nobody had a clue what it was, and it was like, all right, well, we're ready, but what's going on? And actually, my old mechanic Corey, and friends since we were kids, texted my wife during that and said there's something going on with the shock, and she didn't know, how to relay that message. Like basically just said there's something going on with the shock, and they knew it was for the back end, but they didn't know that it was a bolt or what to be prepared for.
Dang. So then the part that I know a lot of people were talking about, the part that came into question, the part that I'm sure you saw posted on social media was the fact that Racer TV had a camera on you when you went right back into the pits. And like I tried to explain it yesterday just without even talking to you about it, but just like from the perspective of everything that could have been going through your mind at that moment to cause that. And it's not just one singular moment. It's not just one singular race. It's the whole big picture and everything that went into it. But I know that moment is something that's been called into question. I know that I'm sure you've probably heard stuff from your team and people behind you about it. I'm sure you've probably seen stuff from the trolls on the internet about it. But obviously, in that situation, it's tough to process it. It's tough to deal with that much emotion. And what we're talking about is you putting the bike on the stand and then taking the frustrations out on the tent pole. How can you best describe that situation? Or I mean, if you wanted to address the people that are saying things, it's kind of the situation of like before, like revving at the crowd, trying to get people out of the way after one of the races we talked about last year, and people came out and said, oh, it's poor sportsmanship, this, that, and the other. From your perspective, I mean, how do you even process a moment like that?
Yeah, I'll get to that in just a second. I gotta hop off the phone. The Patriots are actually calling. They need somebody on the line for next week, and
see, now I will be honest. I was wondering, like, was that a tryout for like an NFL team or maybe Southern Exposure? You know what I mean? Like, it's been a while since I've seen some pole work so hot and heavy took the pole down.
Yeah.
Talk about life after retirement. You might be onto something.
Yeah, I mean, I jumped off my bike and the pole just happened to be at the wrong place at the wrong time. Luckily for the pole, it had no feelings and it could be patched up and welded, Tuesday. But
Dude, I'm just glad the pole came off. That would have been a way worse situation had the pole not moved.
I'm still wondering. I kind of want to rip another pole off the tent just to see like how strong are they. Like, was I full retard strength at that point, or was that pole kind of flimsy? If that's the case, like I'm gonna have to talk to the tent manufacturers and let them know like the shit came down way too easy. We're gonna have to put some reinforcements in case I find another rider that is hot headed like myself. Um, no, I mean, yeah, like to me, somebody asked, should you put out a public apology? And my response is simple: no. No. Two letters, one word, no. Absolutely not. I will not put out a public apology.
But the children, Stu, the children, they saw
Yeah,
that.
here's my thought for your kids. And I've been posed this question before. As a parent, it is my job to make sure that my child is a better person than I am. Whether he acts like me or not, obviously we saw a Stasic breakdown. So I think personally, having a toddler, I think that's why I acted that.
I think he set a bad example for you because he did it first.
Exactly. No, I mean, as a parent, if you don't want your child drinking beer or cussing, well, guess what? Most likely you cuss in front of them and you drink beer, and they're not allowed to do it. So you can tell them not to do that, then you can tell them not to act like me. Plain and simple. That's an easy response for me. I I am not going to sit here and say that I'm a perfect role model. And hell, let's just face it. Whoever you voted for this year or last year or next year, they're probably not perfect role models either. But you don't plan on being exactly like them. You plan on giving them a position of power. Well, guess what? I'm in a position where I have a little bit of power. And what I do should not dictate your life because guess what? I'm not your president. At the end of the day, I'm just a guy riding a dirt bike, and I'm doing it because I love it the same way that most of my viewers love it. That's the way that I see it. So at the end of the day, if you're a parent and you feel upset about it, too damn bad. Pull your panties out of a wad, moms. I don't really care. Here's the situation at hand. Just like your kid in that parking lot, when you brought them there, you had no intentions of them ever being anything. You took them there because they wanted to be there. You had a fun family affair. Then it all of a sudden becomes, man, this kid could make it pro. I remember those first conversations, like this kid could make it pro, talking about me. Little did they know that I could not only make it pro, but I could make it to be one of the most winning racers of the generation. And it's just it's human instinct. Like, man, you take something away from somebody who has worked their entire life towards one goal. What do you expect? Like, do you expect me to sit there and say, man, that's cool? Like, and then to add to it, like, I've been in this situation before. You didn't see that reaction when my bike broke down on turn 4 on a day that Ben Kelly got 9th place and the championship could have been in the bag. Like, you didn't see that reaction then. I I I mean, realistically, you did not see that reaction. But I've lived it twice now. Not a guy who broke down at round 4 and could have won a championship had I not broke down at round 4. A guy who literally all the way at the very end of 2 championships had it stripped away. Money aside, I mean, this is something you work for your whole life. And then again, to add to it, how many times am I going to have another shot at this? How many times am I going to line up to a season and say, I mean, I'm 29 years old now. How many times will I line up for another season and say, I think I still have a shot? I mean, that window's closing. So to have it stripped away multiple times, I mean, it hits a lot more than most people realize. To come back from what I've come back from to do this again and line up again and be competitive again. I mean, not many people break their neck, crush their face, like in a single season and still win races. Like I've shown that I am 100% dedicated to put my life on the line for this sport. And that is where I am. Like that is, I mean, sadly, like, hey, it's an addiction. We've talked about it before. Like we're sick people. Like I will do anything to win this. And when it's stripped away like that, absolutely. Like I would expect if I were to hire a rider tomorrow and it got stripped away like that, I would want that. I would have to say him so. I would have to say something to him because as a team owner and manager, you would have to say something like, "Hey, man, next time don't do that." Well, I hope to God there's not a next time, but you know, that's the rider that I want. Like if I were to hire somebody, I want somebody that wants it more than anything else in their life. I want somebody that shows that kind of emotion towards what we're doing. If you sit down and you smile and you say, "Man, hey, we'll get them next year," like you're a loser to me. Like that, you clearly didn't want it as bad as everybody else wanted around you wanted it. So yeah, I mean that's my spill on that. Like I'm not apologizing to anybody. If it hurt your feelings, guess what it did to mine? Like kiss my ass. that's that's my opinion to it. I hate to burst the bubble of some of the moms out there, but right now, like that's how I am. Like I mean, do you want your kid to make a living in the sport? What are you in this parking lot for? If you say no, like there's a couple questions for you, and outside of that, like it cut a lot deeper than what most people realize because I've been in that exact situation before, and yeah, that was a tough one.
Yeah, and I mean a couple sentiments from my perspective, just thinking about it, is like, first of all, half of the people that are complaining about this, especially if they're parents, are 10 times worse than that when their little 12-year-old kid gets into a scuffle with someone on the track. Like the mini parents and the way that they react over something that their child did is 100 times worse than any reaction that I've seen you have publicly for anything. And then the same thing, the other people, the weekend warriors, the vet riders, the sea riders, or anybody like that has a problem with it, are the same ones having to freak out over a C-Class championship, let alone everything that's on the line for an XC1 overall championship from a money standpoint, from a legacy standpoint, from a career standpoint. And so it's really easy when you do something in the public eye for somebody to look at that and throw rocks at that or cast the blame on that or judge you because of that, when they so easily forget that situations like that have happened to them time and time again. So, I mean, that's my biggest thing is the hypocrisy in it, especially over some of the people that I saw making comments about it. But
Yeah.
the second sentiment of that is something that my wrestling coach always used to tell us is you show me a good loser and I'll show you a loser. And it's just like you said, like if you have a rider that doesn't get fired up, that isn't emotional in that situation, how bad did they want it? How bad were they thinking about that? How much were they thinking about that at night? How much pressure did they put on themselves to do that? If you can go through that situation and not have a reaction. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's like I said, if I were hiring a rider and they didn't have that reaction, I would be more concerned.
Yeah.
Like, to me, like and and was there a better place for that? Maybe I could have run around the back of the semi, but at that given moment in time, right after doing the math in my head, there was, I mean, there was no stopping that. Like it just is what it is. Like like I said, I'm not apologizing for it, and you won't hear me apologize for it. I didn't injure anybody. The tent got fixed on Tuesday. Had to find an aluminum welder in West Virginia, but
Oh,
no,
so
I
it broke
like.
the weld?
Oh yeah, snapped it clean off.
Okay, so dude, that's what this whole time. That's what I've been wondering. Is how did that pole come off? I thought it like wasn't attached or something. But yeah, that's a whole new perspective. That's a whole new element.
Yeah, that's why I want to rip another one down just to see like how strong are these things. Like, am I strong, or did I go retard strength, or what exactly happened? Is this thing weak? Like,
Dang.
yeah, no, it's like I said, I'm not apologizing to anybody. At the end of the day, like, man, like it's like ripping your life away in that moment. Like, I mean, you could you could genuinely put that right up there with like a family member dying. I mean, sadly, like that's like to somebody like me who has dedicated that much of their life and time to one thing, and to have it that close, like ripped away, like that's the way that I genuinely took it. And you know, a lot of people will never have an attachment with something like that to know unless to me, like the only way that I can reference something like that would be like I said, a family member dying that was too young. I mean, that's legit. Like, sadly, the way that it feels, and somebody who has dedicated that much towards it, like I mean, it was rough. Like, it it still is, but you know, I still have a job to do and still got to line up and do my best. So the the my sights are set on the next goal, but it's definitely something that has not been an easy one to live with this week.
Dude, I mean, yeah, I tried my hardest to kind of imagine, but there's no way that anyone can truly imagine. And on the flip side of that, regardless of what happened in the moment, um, I kind of text you because we talked about doing a show after this GNCC. Obviously, didn't think it would be on these terms, but I mean, I kind of texted you on Monday and said, "Hey, wanted to give you your space. Super gutted the way that things turned out this weekend, but if you wanted to come on and talk, by all means, we're here." And you text me right back immediately, "Hey, here's when I can do it." And so when people want to form their opinion or they want to say one thing or the other about you, about your personality, about the way you handle things, I think the one thing that no one can deny is how true you are to you and how true you are to yourself. Even just from saying you're not apologizing to anybody for the way you reacted, but then facing the adversity, like you said, it can't even put into words what this weekend felt like to you, but for you to still come on the podcast, come on here and talk about it for an hour and go into detail about it and face it, where it would be so much easier to just not text back or not want to do the show or not want to talk about it. So, I mean, there is a lot that goes into that, but I think the people that are on one side of the fence or the other obviously are going to find a hard time giving you credit for anything. But, I mean, I think situations like this just kind of prove the type of person that you are, the type of competitor that you are, and then also to come on here and be kind of lighthearted about it in the face of it. I mean, that also takes a lot that I think a lot of people wouldn't do in this situation.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen it before. Like, you wait to see what does this person have to say about what happened, and I mean, hell, we ever even see what Chase Sexton had to say after the last SMX? Like, it, it's one of those things. Like, you're definitely gutted over these situations, and the thing is, like, to me, if I don't say anything about it, like, I'm keeping the people who pay my bills because of my personal life out of my personal life. And at the end of the day, like, the fans pay the bills. You've got to, you have to suck it up and talk about it. And I've had a long career, and I've found that being open and upfront with what's going on and what situation, like, people find value in that, and when people find value in it, sponsors find value in it. So, not just saying it's a business. The reason that I came on here, like, obviously I have personal reasons too. Like, I want to express myself because I always have, and I it's more or less the way that I am. And I have one of those things, like, between your mind and your mouth. There's like this filter that most people have. I just don't have one. So, um, yeah, like, I mean, to me, like, there's multiple reasons for coming on here, but yeah, I mean, definitely, like, you have to face it because it is part of the job. Like, you have to say, hey, this is what happened, and man, it sucks, but next week I still need you guys in my corner. So, that's where a lot of these guys, like, keeping so quiet and closed with their feelings or who they are is kind of killing the sport. Like, man, we've got a we've got a lot of guys that I don't care to, quite frankly, follow. Like, if they were on this podcast, I don't listen. I mean, I'm sorry. Like, I'd much rather listen to you rambling on about stuff that you think than talking to any of my fellow pro riders. Like, they genuinely do not interest me. There's not one. The only rider, and he's not even pro, that stands out to me is JoJo Cunningham. Like, he's the only one with like his own little his own persona that I know. Like, talking to him, he's not going to change. And outside of that, like, they're all the same. So, when when you text me and ask me about things like that, like, I've got my own I am my own person, and I'd like to I'd like to have people hear my side of most things, and from my perspective. And there's some NASCAR drivers right now that do the same, guys that are starting their own podcasts, and where years ago they always seemed to be in the middle of drama. It was the only reason they were in the middle of the drama is because you were hearing it from somebody else's angle. And my perspective, like, I want you to hear it from my perspective. So I would much rather get on here, say what I got to say. And if you still don't like me, I don't care. It doesn't bother me. I'm not going to lose any sleep over that. Now, I will lose sleep over this championship. I can promise that.
Yeah, I mean, how could you not? But I mean, going to the flip side of that, dude, 2 years ago, we went through the debacle at the Buckwheat. We came into that last round. The sky let out. It was a monsoon. We were crossing rivers. It was one of the muddiest races I can remember, one of the most water-filled races I can remember. You yourself DNF'd in that situation. Ben Kelly, 9th place on the day. So literally, there's anything that could happen at this next round. A shock bolt randomly broke. Like, there's no telling what can happen going into that next round. And I know that 23 points is 23 points. But where do you keep your mindset going into these next 2 weeks, going into that final round? I know coming off this weekend has to be tough, but where is your mindset heading into this final round, knowing that, I mean, you've ran into issues at this final round yourself?
I just know that if I'm top 2 at the end of the day, I did my job. Between today and next week, it's my job to make sure that I'm top 2. And that way, if anything happens to Craig, I know for a fact that I did my job. And if anything doesn't happen to Craig and he wins this championship, I know for a fact that I did my job. No matter what, if I'm top 2, I have to know. I just have to know, like, you did your job. And, if I crash out trying, well, then I put it all on the line. But if I ride around for a 5th place, I will not be happy. So, from now moving forward, it's just a matter of making sure that I'm in the top 2, or doing everything I can for me to rest easy, for me to put it to bed and focus on next year.
Gotcha. And I don't know, man. I know we've gone a little bit over an hour here, and I know we kind of talked for a while before we started recording. So I don't want to take up all your time, because I am super appreciative that you took the time out to talk to us. And I try my best to kind of get into these questions and really like kind of get to hear the whole story and everything. But I just wanted to open it up to you at this point. And is there anything else that you wanted to get across? Is there anything else that's on your mind or on your heart, or any other way that you want to leave the conversation, I guess?
I mean, right now, like, I've pretty much said everything. I'm not going to apologize. What I did is what I did. If the moms and dads want to be upset, or whoever the bystanders are want to be upset, they can be. obviously in my position, it's a delicate position, with what I do with the team. Like, I'm wearing two hats. So you almost have to be the team manager, which is the guy that yells at people for doing that. But at the same time, I'm the rider. So if I'm the manager and the rider, I gotta think both ways. And but right now the rider's overruling the manager. I'm not apologizing for I'm not apologizing for anything that I did. It was, I feel, in my eyes, 100% called for and justified. And feel otherwise, fine. Don't be a fan. There's people that aren't. Outside of that, I'm just ready to go to Ironman and now Japan. We released we're going to Japan this year, so that will be my final race of the season. And after that, it is to a tree, peace and quiet in a deer stand, and away from all the BS and all the dirt bikes and all the noise and all the drama for just a couple weeks until it starts over again. And then it's back to my favorite time of year, the off-season riding in the Southeast that you just can't beat. So, the next couple months got a couple more hectic weeks, and after that, I'm looking forward to the ones that follow.
Sweet. And I completely forgot about the Japan thing. I saw Bolton's post, and but we can table that, save it for another day. We're a fan, man. I know a lot of people that listen to this are big fans as well, and I don't think your fan section is dying off anytime soon. So thank you again for coming on. Thank you for chatting with us about it and letting us hear it from your perspective. And as always, man, just appreciate the time. Absolutely.
Anytime. Hopefully we'll have another good discussion after Ironman, maybe while I'm sitting in the airport on the way to wherever the hell we're going. Somewhere overseas. Perfect. I can't think of the name. Something Japan, but if I tried to say it, I would sound like an idiot.
Osaka. That's
yeah.
I only know like 3 Japan towns.
We'll call it Osaka. I don't think it's Osaka, but we're gonna go with it.
Hiroshima, Nagasaki.
Nagasaki, that's it.
Oh, really?
Yep, that's it.
Those are the 2 places that we dropped the atomic bomb. That's the only reason I know those 2 towns.
Oh God.
So. Bring a radiation
Maybe
suit.
It's not. I think I need to scratch that. It starts with an N, and I'm pretty sure it ends with a sake. But if that's the case, then maybe not.
Close enough. Well, I hope you go get a W over there, and I hope you end it with a sake, the drink. So we'll see you in a couple weeks at Ironman. Sounds like Levi's calling you now. Yeah. And thanks again.
Jade and the kid are fighting right now. Got it all out, bro.
He better not have a meltdown. That's not allowed.
Yeah, we're not allowed to have those.
All right, man. We'll talk to you later on. See ya.
All right, sounds good. Thanks. See ya.